Coming up, a new wearable enters the blindness space, and our app of the week is Talking Tuner.
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Preece.
Hey, Shaun Preece, how are you today?
Gorgeous. Thank you, Stephen Scott. How are you, sir?
I am good. I've got to say, just for any, look, I'm going to say it, Shaun. I'm going to say it. I know you like to pick me up on my accent. I just want to be clear, Talking Tuner. In case people think I'm talking about Talking Tuna, like some kind of fish-based app.
Yeah.
Some sort of AI that turns you into a fish.
Well, given this is Double Tap, it wouldn't surprise me either way. Talking tuna, baguettes, maybe, a nice tuna and sweet.
We've got everything going here. We've got dogs, we've got cats here, we've got cookie monsters. So,
If you're into your guitars, this is an amazing app.
It is. And Brian Counter from Champaign, Illinois. That sounds so cool. I feel like I'm on an 80s radio show when I say that. On the line, Brian from Champaign, Illinois. Or I'm just sitting on being that radio person that was in Sleepless in Seattle.
Haven't seen it.
Never. Do you know what? For fans of radio,
wow, you've gone all serious. That's the funny thing. You go serious about me not seeing Sleepless in Seattle.
I know.
Or whatever
Don't care about anything else. I'm just like, what? You're serious? You've never seen it? It's so good. Such a great movie. And there's a brilliant scene in it, which I love, which is just this radio show. And I say it's just a radio show playing in a car for a very short part of the film, granted. But, it's still, for me, it's the bit I focused on. Yeah, brilliant. the good old days of talk radio. Hey, that's what we're doing here. Probably should go on with it. Yeah. So... Yes.
Let's talk.
What was I saying? Yeah, so Talking Tuner. Yes, that's our app of the week, and that's brought to us by Brian Cantor, of course. Looking forward to hearing that. But you know what? I want to get into the news today because there's cool stuff.
News.
Yes, cool stuff going on in the news.
The news. There
Indeed.
is. Surprising.
What is it? Surprising there's news?
This snuck up on me because apparently the first story we're going to talk about was talked about or unveiled at CES, and I totally missed it.
Or CES, as everyone else calls it.
Well, if you're not down with the youth, if you're not down with the funky people.
Granddads.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kapsys. Kapsys is a company well known, of course, for its Smart Vision 3 product and the Mini Vision as well. And, they've actually got quite a long history of products. Going back to 2004, there's a range of different products going right back, and they've been around for a while. I must admit, for me, Kapsys is a name that only kind of came up in the last 5 years. I wasn't as aware of it as I was. It's a French company, and they do sell around the world, but it was not a product I was particularly aware of.
I've got to say, I'm exactly the same. Yeah, it's only recently I've really sort of become aware of them, and I don't know why that is. Like you say, they've been around for 20 years.
Do you know, I think sometimes, dare I say it, but the more blind you get, the more interested in these products you get. I think if you're in that low vision category of you're just trying to get along, and you are managing to get along fine. Maybe you don't even use a mobility aid at this point.
Yes,
you don't even bother with these devices. You're like, I want my iPhone, I want my Android phone, I want, I'll have large text, I'll, use Zoom on a computer. You just get on with it. But when you lose more vision and you actually think, I could perhaps benefit from this stuff. I mean, I go back to the Victor Reader stream all the time with this. It was a device that I kind of thought, okay, whatever. Then I started using it because I needed it, and I thought, this is an amazing device. I was like, oh, this is great. Have you heard of the Victor Reader stream?
Yes,
and everyone's like, yes,
late
Stephen.
to the party.
Yeah, we know.
Dear. Yes, true.
But
anyway.
Kapsys, of course, known for all these great products, have come up with a wearable. Yes.
I know. Now,
new wearable.
Of course. Well, wearables are something we're all waiting for, that the one that does what it promises. Have we got anything like it yet? Kind of. We got a feel of it, especially with the smart glasses, especially now with AI as well, the live video. We can see what this technology can do for us. And I've got to say, reading the press release on this, it's saying all the right things. I just really hope it can deliver.
Yeah, so I think we have to kind of almost categorize this as a mobility aid. All right.
Yes.
I put it in that way. Not, and again, I'm sure they would say this. And we can tell you that just before we came on air, we learned that the Kapsys CEO is going to be joining us on the show next week, or at least we'll be talking to us next week, and we'll be airing that interview hopefully straight after. So if you have any questions about Kapsys, please do send them in. We'll give you the contact details, and you can share your questions to the CEO of Kapsys about anything, frankly, anything at all, but definitely about this, because I know this is going to cause a lot of excitement in the community for a couple of reasons. One, it is that mobility device, not a cane replacement, not a dog replacement. There's no talk of that in the press release. Sorry, I keep hitting my microphone. I'm just so excited.
You're so
I
excited.
love wearables.
Calm down.
But the thing is that, this particular device is not being sold as an AI companion in the way that, it's not going to, at least at this stage, it's not going to be offering you ChatGPT through your glasses type thing, right? But it kind of is. It's like, it's a weird one, but we'll go through the details.
We're not sure. Yeah, let's go through what it actually is first. What's the design of it? What's the format?
So the format here is very much like a bone conduction headset, like we would get from Shocks. So it's, that kind of one the band around the back of the head, and it just sits in front of your ears, and you get that audio. So again, you have open ear. You can listen to everything that's going on around about you, but you can also hear from the device as well. The device not only has the sound in it you can listen to, you can also have those microphones in there for calls. You can also use the camera that's built in as well. Now, what functionality this offers, we're going to find out next week. We'll get more details on. In fact, what I'm going to do first, because before we get into the detail here, I want to play you a clip from a video that was published online, and this is on YouTube, actually. This is the CEO who's joining us next week, talking about the product at its launch at CES this year.
KapX is a ultralight AI-powered headset equipped with a camera, helps you to walk around safely. With 4 hours of autonomy, it guides you along sidewalks and avoid obstacles, not only at the ground, but at the human's weight, which a guide dog cannot do. Finally, thanks to its 3D sound, it notifies you all urban elements which surrounds you, like traffic lights, bus stops, crossroads, stairs, but most importantly, notifies you the danger to avoid. By unveiling KapX at CES 2025, we aim to improve the lives of the visually impaired and contribute to a more inclusive society where everyone can be confident, free, and safely.
So, a little bit of detail there, not much, but we have got more in the press release. We can dig into here. We will be talking to Aram from Kapsys next week. But look, we're talking here about a headset which can give you guidance. Okay, so it's in that mobility category. Now, there will be AI components in this, but I don't know if it's going to be quite as much as it's almost the opposite of Meta AI to some degree, in that we would ask the time, or we'd ask the weather, or we'd ask it to do something. Yeah. We're not going to maybe do that with this headset, potentially, but it's maybe more meaningful and functional for us, this particular headset.
Well, absolutely. This may be just focusing on the important stuff, as in avoiding obstacles. Yeah. The interesting sort of the bullet point from the press release, that it says ground level sort of monitoring. So for it checks, or it can detect the difference between the sidewalk and the road, and it also mentions cycle paths as well, and it will tell you which is the safe path to go on.
Psychopaths,
which is Yes, don't make the joke, please.
Psychopaths or cycle paths. You've got to be clear on that. Look,
I did say psychopaths.
Ideally avoids both.
Anyway, how it does that, I don't know. Also, as was mentioned there, it can detect, obstacles in front of you. I think in the press release it said 10 meters in front of you as well. But the interesting thing for me from this is, because I'm kind of thinking, okay, so this is the next iteration of, AI live video mode. But it says this is a standalone device, no internet connection needed. So this is all done on device. So how is that happening? Very interesting. I got to say, brings up a lot more questions than it answers, but I'm really interested to see, when we get to talk to him. Yeah,
the press release focuses in on 4 key areas, okay? So as you said, the smart ground detection. So, avoiding trying to negotiate all of, the various things in front of you, giving you information about, as you say, the sidewalks, the roads, the crossroads, bike paths, all that stuff, and psychopaths. Also, obstacle avoidance as well. So, if there's things in your path, it will tell you about them. and guide you to the safest path. Again, fascinating. Scene description as well, so it'll give you a clear understanding of what's going on around you by describing objects in your environment upon request. Then you'll hear obstacle names and distances with 3D text-to-speech, making your journey safe, intuitive, and informative. Now, as typical as we do here at Double Tap, immediately when I hear that, I then think about the potential features and benefits down the line, like, where's my cup? Type thing, Can you find that for me here? And it could potentially do that as well, right? If it can do it outside, there's no reason why it couldn't do it indoors.
Absolutely. I've got to say, this is a very... The trouble is, I've got to say, we I think all of us in the community are a little bit jaded by, so many of these mobility devices we hear about. But when it comes to using them actually in the real world, maybe they don't deliver. So I am trying not to, get overexcited and maybe overhype it. But from what is said here, I mean, it does sound nice. And the form factor is interesting as well, because, as we've talked about before, not everyone wants smart glasses to wear glasses. So, doing it this way in a headband, very like the ARX, for example.
That's right.
Sounds very similar.
And the other difference here, I suppose, with the ARX is that the ARX has that sort of extra camera block, which kind of sits there like a packet of matches kind of attached to the side of you. Well, not attached, but, it's sort of sitting on your cheek. Whereas this is all built into that same form factor as those OpenCom headphones.
Yeah.
There's no extra camera bump. There's no extra chunk to it on one side. It's even, I think,
and
a grey
no
color. I don't think so. No, I don't. There's no mention of a wire.
It mentions Bluetooth connectivity. Now, it does say...
And that's interesting as well. Also, it does. Yes, it does. You're right.
But it mentions that in the context of being able to listen to other apps on your smartphone, Voice Vista, Soundscape, or whatever.
Yes.
So I don't know if that means there's definitely no other... you don't need a hardwire connection to your phone, but I'm assuming that. I'm assuming this is because it does mention later on, it is a standalone device. So very interesting. What's the price going to be, though? If it is a standalone device, it's doing all that processing on board. Firstly, how they've managed to get all that tech into such a compact design is really impressive. What's the battery life going to be? Just so many questions.
Yeah, tons of questions. And as you say, there was that immediate thought of, well, this will only work with Kapsys smartphones, because that would kind of make sense for them to do that, but also wouldn't make sense. And thankfully, they have gone for the that wouldn't make sense argument. So it is available for any smartphone. It doesn't specify a particular device. Again, if it's Bluetooth connected, how much will it get access to? Will it need? I mean, so many questions. Like, could it potentially work with Be My Eyes? Could it work with Ira? I don't know. Being standalone and its own platform, potentially. We need to find out more. So we're going to be talking to the CEO of Kapsys next week, and we'll hopefully get all these answers. I'm very interested, though. Very interested in this. It's available from June 2025. It also makes the point here that it is fully scalable. Regular updates and new features can be added. It's autonomous. It works, as you say, without an internet connection. It's operational worldwide, taking into account local specifics for optimal use. Whatever that means, and it's simple.
What?
So
it does mention, looking out for crosswalks, and you think of the problems that OCO have been having with rolling out globally, because not all crosswalks work the same in every country. They're different. So if it can do that somehow, I mean, it's already an advantage.
Yeah, and psychopaths are different everywhere you go as well.
Psychopaths. I said it perfectly.
Perfectly well.
No. Let's move on.
Let's move on, indeed. Very interesting story, though. I'm really intrigued to learn more about that. Okay, so let's move on to this story, because the GA Conf Awards for 2024, and you might think, Stephen, you've got that wrong. It's 2025. But these awards look back at the year before, and this is all about game accessibility. It gives an opportunity for all the people, all the companies, all the organizations who support people who want to play games with disabilities, and also, create hardware, create accessible games, all of that to come together and be recognized for the work they do. It's hosted by a good friend of the show, Steve Saylor, of course. He was the host of the event. It was streamed live on the IGN network, and it really just gives a chance to promote all these wonderful games like Prince of Persia, Star Wars Outlaws. I'm not going to pretend I know any of these. I'm just reading them. Dragon Age, the Veilguard. I'm butchering this, I'm sure. Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, Life is Strange. Tell me about it. And so on and so forth, right? Tons of games. We're going to put a full list of the winners up and also the categories as well, so you can go and check them out. A couple of notable mentions that I have to bring up here. And one is for an award that is given for best journalism. And our good friend who's been on the show many times with us, Grant Stoner, won the award here for a really wonderful article titled, and again, we'll link to it because you really should go and read this. It is an incredible story. He put a huge amount of work into this. Certainly not for the award, but he did it and he rightly won the award. The article's titled, "A Prominent Accessibility Advocate Worked with Studios and Inspired Change, but she never actually existed." It's an incredible story, which we may circle back to at some point, because we have actually, this particular individual, we have had on our show. And she I should say she, as a person, existed, but the advocate part didn't. And it's a very, very interesting story. It's well worth checking out. It's a long read, but it's wonderful. I expect it to be a Netflix series anytime soon. It honestly could be. I mean, making change but by not existing is pretty impressive stuff. Yes. But also terrifying in a lot of ways. And also I want to mention as well, another, which was, and I'm just going through, yes, the Advocacy Award. This is for someone who is either in a development role or not. Anyone who is an advocate using their voice basically to make a difference across the wider industry. Matthew Alcock, again, a name we know well here on the show, also known as the Wobbly Gamer. Yes. He was on winning with that award as well. He won the Advocacy Award, which is just absolutely wonderful.
Oh, well done. Both of you.
Just amazing. Listen, we did catch up with Sightless Combat. We always catch up with Steve Saylor, and we will do again soon, because this is a conversation, if I'm honest, Shaun, we don't tend to have much of here on Double Tap. Yep, we don't talk about a lot of these games. I mean, wonderful games and big games that are getting accessibility built in, right? The games that everyone else is playing, which is wonderful.
All due to the work of these people.
That's right.
Who've pushing for accessibility. We'd be nowhere where we are now if it wasn't for their work.
Yeah, but is it enough? Job. Is it enough? That's the question. And I caught up last year with Sightless Combat. Now, he is someone who is an accessibility expert. He is a consultant, and he is a gamer without sight, as he calls himself. And he told me last year the state of game accessibility then, which certainly applies today.
The reality is there are still too few games that you can actually play without assistance, but it's definitely an improvement on what we would have before. We're still looking, though, for more game developers to rise to the challenge of making games accessible to people without sight. Because I've had people, say to me, they're called video games for a reason. Go outside and get a new hobby. And one person who said, I work with blind people. They don't play video games. It's not the done thing, which still years later baffles me.
Yeah. It just isn't. Look, I mean, there was a time I would probably have said the same thing, right? But that was at the time when Outrun was a game.
Space Harrier.
Yeah,
yes,
things have changed.
Layer.
Pong,
yes.
Those kind of things. Yeah, things have moved on. And why shouldn't disabled people, blind people especially, why should we not have that? Why? And who are these people? Who are these people that say, I work with blind people? And
no. It's not the done thing. That's why we shouldn't do it.
Oh, well.
No. It just means that we haven't been able to take part before. That's why it hasn't been done. That's why it's not the done thing. It's because we can't do it. But, that's purely down to the inaccessibility. Now, I've got to say as well, and you mentioned this earlier, I've kind of guilty of this myself. I kind of think, well, that's not going to be accessible. It's a generational thing. It's just, how on earth could that be accessible? But you know what? There's smarter people out there than me that make this stuff work and make this, that we can be included in the fun of video games. So, I love this stuff.
And look, there's a huge community that builds up around it as well. I mean, it's funny. I'm not part of it at all in any way, but every time I hear names, I hear Tara Voltka, or I hear Steve Saylor, or Ian Hamilton, or Sightless Combat, there's a community of people out there who are all working together to try and push forward with this. And we'll link to the awards so you can get a chance to go watch them if you want. It's well worth checking out, because even if you're not hugely into games, the stories are incredible. I mean, like I mentioned, the journalism there, but also, all the work that's been done to make games accessible. And the hardware category is fascinating. Some of the developments that are going out there, we used to cover these on Access Tech Live when we were on there. And, it was so interesting. All the amazing developments for all kinds of disabilities. We focus here, of course, on blindness, but when you start to think about physical disability, people with no arms, no hands, how do you play a game? There's technology available. There are companies making this. Yeah,
it's amazing.
And coming from the Xbox adaptive controller, the PlayStation Access controller. These are made by the companies themselves, right? We've got to that stage, which is
when
amazing.
When would that have happened? Who would have thought of that? Even, I don't know, 10 years ago, who would have thought that would have happened? Maybe, a third-party manufacturer, specialist assistive technology manufacturer would make a controller that would cost thousands and thousands. I've just
thought of something.
No, what?
Apple could make a Braille display.
Is that a good thing?
Yes. Are you kidding me? If Apple made a Braille display, it'd be the best Braille display in the world, because it'd probably just cost exactly the same as every other Braille display. I should think about it from Apple. Yeah, it would just charge exactly the same amount of money. But it would be the best Braille display ever made.
Yeah, but they'd have to put their Apple spin on it. It'd be, I don't know, they'd get rid of Braille cells. It'd be something else.
It'd be a haptic keypad
yes, that's right.
to type in.
Wear on your forehead. Let's make that happen, Apple.
So yeah, check out the details on the show notes for the GA Conf event awards, and of course the winners as well. Well done to everyone involved, because you do amazing work. You really do.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, let's move on to Blazie. Now, we were both reading this story today, a little bit confused by it, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. So Blazie, of course, makers of the BT Speak Pro, is available, and everyone's very excited about that, and we definitely are going to get those guys on to get an update. But this also came out of the blue. This is a new, I don't want to call it an app, because it seems more like a script for JAWS that is now on sale from Blazie, and this is to enable a sort of seamless and easy to use ChatGPT experience for JAWS users. Have I got that right?
Well, apparently so, yes. Look, okay, makes total sense. I've seen these on NVDA as well. You can get add-ons that make accessing ChatGPT easier. Not the easiest thing to set up. You need to get an API key and da-da-da-da-da. But anyway, everyone wants to use AI. And of course, as screen reader users, you want easy access to that. You don't want to have to go off and do something, tab around or whatever. You just want easy access to that AI content. And this is what this promises. So a keystroke to bring up a dialog box, you type in your request, your question, processes it. JAWS will read out the response. There's also a history, so you can quickly browse through, almost like the speech history, I'm imagining, of your screen reader, where you can go back and easily access all those responses without having to navigate through a cluttered interface, for example. So for me, this seems like, a JAWS script gives you quick and easy access to ChatGPT, which sounds fantastic. I totally get that. The only thing I'm slightly confused about is there is a subscription cost to this.
Yeah. So
Why?
I don't know if we're seeing it local pricing, because we're in the UK, but it says £50 in the UK, $6.99 a month. And I have to ask
£50 for the year. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So my question is, what am I paying for? I mean, look, I've got to be clear here and be consistent as well, right? We complain when developers give everything away for free and then charge a huge price because they can't afford to keep it going. And then I'm the one that says, maybe we do need to pay for things. So I'm fine for paying for stuff. I just want to know the detail here, right? Because ultimately, are you paying for an easier way to access GPT via JAWS? Okay, that's fine. Is that a fair price? Well, look, I suppose you could say, well, Blazie's a small company. It's a small team. This is very niche. This is for a group of people who use a certain piece of software in a certain environment. So this might be why that price is that way. I just don't know if £50 might be a little bit too much for that. I could be wrong.
Really?
I don't know.
How dare you, sir? Yeah, we had the big conversation about developers needing to, maintain software and keep it going.
Which I agree with, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think actually that cost is fine, depending, of course, how much you use the service, which goes across every subscription that you pay for. It's worth its value if you use it. But yeah, exactly what you said, though. I'm not sure what you get with the subscription in it. It doesn't seem, at least on what I read, clear. I mean, for example, does this pay to access ChatGPT extra? But that's £20 a month over here in the UK
Yeah.
on its own if you went through OpenAI. So it can't be that. So it must just be for the script subscription, right? For the ability to use the script and nothing else. So then it's up to you if you think that's worthwhile.
Yeah. I mean, look, as I have mentioned before, Blazie was a piece of software which I didn't ever really think much of.
Now you don't shut up about it, honestly.
And it's only because, again, I kind of had the wrong impression of what it was. I kind of thought it was a more professional, kind of like somebody who's in a serious role would use. I didn't realize it was actually to make things even easier to use JAWS and to get access to things on the computer. And if I'd known that, I'd have been all in so much sooner. And so, I loved it. I thought Blazie is just an amazing piece of software.
And it is.
And it is well worth the money. And you could always argue, well, maybe it's too much, maybe it's too... But again, it's worth its weight in gold if it works for you, right? Mm-hmm. So, the benefit's there. So this could be exactly the same. I do like the way, and I kind of like this ability to make these services easier to use. I guess the cost is really about the maintenance, because things will be changing all the time on ChatGPT, right? I mean, the interface has changed many times. They're going to have to do a lot of work in the background to keep that going. So I guess that's where the cost comes in. And actually, do you know what? I'm saying it's maybe too much. I don't know if it is. We can all argue that. It's all up to the individual, I think. But you know what? Good for them for putting the price down and for putting value on it, because you're putting value on your work. And good for you for that, Blazie, because that's what we need to do more of. We need to recognize our value. Yes, we have to be careful we don't go too far with that. We want to make it affordable for people, and I think they probably have. I mean, £50 a year is not a huge amount of money when you split it down over the month, and paying 50 quid up front, that might be, I'm talking myself into it here.
It's funny, though. You say that, and you always got to sort of almost put a caveat in there, because, some people say, well, £50 is a lot of money a month, and of course everything is individual.
But you also don't have to buy it, right? You could just say, I can manage the website on my own. And look, I don't think this is for people who are dipping their toe in ChatGPT, or who are using it on the odd occasion. I think this is for the heavy users. I think these are for the people who, a bit like the BT Speak Pro is kind of like for that geek, a bit more of that market that are kind of really in depth and getting into this stuff.
People.
I think it's a compliment, actually. I'd be quite happy to call it a geek. But no, I think that's what it's for, right? I think it's about, the people who are really using this all the time, who want to be efficient in what they do. And they don't want to be, jumping through hoops on websites, jumping between, they can just easily access the service.
We've kind of turned ourselves around.
I know,
on
I've
this.
completely gone 360.
Saying, what's this subscription for?
360.
But I'm also thinking of the interview we had with Martijn van der Spek from Pickeybot. Yeah. And, I was saying at the end there that he needs to pay for all these AI requests. Every question that we ask of AI going through Pickeybot, he has to pay, the AI services for those. Well, this could be exactly the same. There, as a third party, they need to pay for every request going through, even though it may not be the $20, £20 a month ChatGPT system. They still have to pay to use it. So at a certain level. So maybe that's where it's coming in. It's just paying for the use case. I think the thing with subscriptions is everyone seems to have a general feeling of what seems fair and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, of course, there's
something in our mind, isn't there? Something that says, £2 is whatever, that's nothing, and £3 and £5. I think it's a 5. Anything above 5 tends to, I don't know, it just seems to, I often think, that's a bit. If you say weirdly, if you say $4.99, it's like, that's fine. $5.99? Are you kidding me? I'm not made of money.
Yeah,
I know it's ridiculous. It's all in the mind. It's all the psychology of it. But I do think this is great, and I think giving people an opportunity to access this in an easier way on JAWS, especially, is wonderful. I should also mention that I did talk about Blazie there. Blazie are also offering ChatGPT access through its own way of scripting. In version 10, which is coming out in February. So well worth knowing about that as well. We're going to try and get Brian Hartgen on to give us some update on that, because it's the 10th anniversary of Blazie. It's big year. Has
it been going 10 years?
Yeah, version 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's so much in it, though, as well.
Amazing.
What's the price of Blazie?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't have it to hand, but...
Sorry, okay.
HeartgenConsultancy.org, I think, if I'm right in saying that. If you Google HeartGen Consultancy, HeartGen, HeartGen Consultancy, you'll get straight to it. And Blazie is Leasey. That's right. I'm convinced myself that's correct.
Braille literacy. Okay.
If only I had learned Braille. I could have sat here and tried to work it out in an untangled grade 2. Yes. A little bit controversial.
Interesting news, though.
Yeah, there you go. That's the news.
News.
Okay, so shall we move on to App of the Week? Because it's a cool one this week. I mean, they all are. They always are. But yes, this one is from Brian Counter, who got in touch with us to share his App of the Week, which is Talking Tuner for iOS.
Hello, everyone. This is Counterproductive Brian from the illustrious Champaign, Illinois, across the pond. And this is a shortened demo of Talking Tuner, a lovely app that I've heard people use. And I just wanted to give people a quick demo to see what it sounds like to anyone who might be interested in giving your instruments a tune. I'm tuning a 6-string acoustic guitar. But I've never tested this on woodwinds or brass, but I imagine you can use it not just for an electric or acoustic guitar, but you could use it for other stringed instruments if you know the notes that each string should be, because this tuner app will just tell you what the note is. It doesn't say the 6th string is in tune. It'll just give you the notes and tell you how far you are away from the notes. So again, if you know what the notes are, you can tune to that. So Talking Tuner is an app which I love. It cost a mere $1, at least in the US when I bought it. And to quote an old, very violent but kind of entertaining movie anyway, I'd buy that for $1. Anyway, in a stringed instrument for this tuner, you do have to know the notes that you're trying to tune to. So for a standard acoustic guitar, let's say it's the notes E, A, D, G, B, and E for your strings going lowest to highest. When you fire up the Talking Tuner, you're going to start off presumably tuning the low E first. Okay, the app is open. Let's give it a try on the low E and see what the app tells us.
No, E is 22 cents flat.
So I've played the guitar, and it says it's 22 cents flat. It's just gradations of tuning. So I'm going to tune this a little bit tighter. Let's see what we get.
No, E is in tune.
Wow, that was lucky. In tune already. So let's go up to the 5th string, the A note, and let's see what we get.
Note A is 33 cents flat.
Flat again, which is unexpected. As the guitar gets out of tune, it can be a little flat. Let's get it up a little bit there, on the tuning.
Note A is 17 cents flat.
A little bit more.
Note A is 11 cents flat. Note A is 17 cents sharp.
Oh, I've gone too high. So it's sharp. Let's tune it back down a little bit.
Note A is 6 cents sharp.
6 cents sharp.
Note A is 6 cents sharp. Note A is 6 cents flat.
Okay, I went too far.
Note A is 6 cents flat. Note A is in tune. Note A is in tune.
All right, it's in tune. Okay, that's generally how the app works. You're just doing gradations, tuning it tighter and looser to get it into tune. I'm not going to take you through the rest of the 4 strings because it's redundant, but you get the general idea. Okay, just for fun, and feel free to edit this out, this is what a supposed Talking Tuner tuned guitar sounds like with a little imperfect voice from yours truly. Again, feel free to edit this out if you want. There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. All right, I can already hear Shaun saying, enough of that. One last thing, I'm going to attempt a horrible version of an App of the Week theme song. Again, feel free to edit this out, and if you hate it, make fun of it all you want. App of the Week. all that said, I hope people do find this short demo useful. Take care.
Wow, Brian. Wow.
No making fun at all. That was really good. Really good. Talking Tuner, that's been around for a long time. And still, I think, the one I hear everyone using who plays a guitar. It's fantastic. I've used it myself. I've got 5 electric guitars in my living room. I've got a bass guitar. I've got a acoustic, semi-acoustic, and I can't play guitar. But I've had them for years.
Whoa. Hang on. What? You have all these guitars and you don't play one of them? Or you can't? I love guitars, and I like to pick them up now and again and just have a little strum. I cannot play. But for keeping them in tune, this was the only app I found that was consistently good. I will say there was times where I was moving that phone. I was balancing it on my shoulder while I'm playing the guitar, or trying to put it actually on the body of the guitar, because sometimes I'm plucking that string and it just stays silent, as we heard a couple of times there. But I haven't used it in years, and I'm sure it's improved. But I think for us, if you're blind and you want to get into tuning, this is it. This is the app. Thank you, Brian. That was so cool. Yeah, that was amazing. And great voice, by the way.
I'm
hoping there's a concert coming very soon, the Double Tap end-of-year concert.
Yes, Brian from Champagne.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
Honestly, we have some incredibly talented people. And listen, I want to say as well, because I'll preempt the emails, I know that some of you may have struggled to hear Brian's voiceover voice. We do tend to, in our own lives, have these screen readers run quite fast. So, and obviously when people are sending these in, if you are sending in an app review, if you can slow down the voice to about 60%, say, or 55%, so everyone can hear it, that's great. But if you forget, don't worry about it. And if you can just make sure as you go along that you're telling us what it's saying, just in case people are missing it.
Yes.
But really do appreciate that, Brian. Thank you so much. And the App of the Week jingle, I think I might be cutting that out. And
yes, we'll have that one. I want more of the House of the Rising Sun.
So did I,
so cool.
I was quite enjoying that there. I was blaring in my ears. I was having a great time. Little private double tap concert. I loved it. Thank you, Brian. And if you have any suggestions that you perhaps would like to share, you can either just send it in an email, or if you want to record something the way Brian did and send it in to us, well, here are the ways you can do it.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback@doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
Okay, shall we get into some emails, Shaun? We've got voicemails, we've got WhatsApps, we've got everything here. Let's dive right in and hear from Brian first off.
Greetings, Stephen, Shaun, lovely Laura, and double tappers everywhere.
No.
I wanted to give Laura a break today. Unfortunately, that means you have to listen to my scraggly voice instead of hers.
That's all right.
But I wanted to send in a couple audio clips to kind of talk about some thoughts that have been swirling through my head lately. I wanted to talk about AI-generated audio descriptive or text-to-speech. I know this is probably a little bit controversial, but I am looking forward to more of both of those. Now, mind you, I don't necessarily think that those are going to be better than a properly scripted, written, recorded, voice-acted, and produced audio descriptive track. I think those are always going to be the ideal, the standard. That's what we should definitely shoot for all the time. But there's just way too much content out there and not enough people actively engaged in that sort of activity. I think, for example, I missed the TV show Deep Space Nine by Star Trek. I'd like to have audio descriptive for that, and I haven't found any of that yet. Likewise for books, I have some readers that are amongst my favorites. Jill Fox, Bob Askey come to mind. I will listen to most anything Jill Fox has read, even books about female detectives in Victorian London, which I really have no business listening to. That being said, again, we have many more books that are being read. That's why services such as Bookshare are around. Furthermore, as I'm about to demonstrate, some of the recordings that were done for books that are older tend to be, well, older recordings. So to give you kind of an example of this, I'm going to play a couple of audio clips from Helen Keller's book, The Story of My Life. The first will be from the NLS recording, which, mind you, is not necessarily a bad recording, but you can kind of tell that it was done many years ago. And then I will follow that by the same passage being read by AI-generated TTS. And then I'll close it up with a couple thoughts. So here we go. First, we'll do the NLS recording. Here we go.
Chapter 4. The most important day I remember in all my life is the one on which my teacher, Anne Mansfield Sullivan, came to me. I am filled with wonder when I consider the immeasurable contrast between the two lives which it connects. It was the 3rd of March, 1887, 3 months before I was 7 years old. On the afternoon of that eventful day I stood on the porch, dumb, expectant. I guessed vaguely from my mother's signs and from the hurrying to and fro in the house that something unusual was about to happen, so I went to the door and waited on the steps.
And now, the AI-generated text-to-speech, same passage.
Chapter 4. The most important day I remember in all my life is the one on which my teacher, Anne Mansfield Sullivan, came to me. I am filled with wonder when I consider the immeasurable contrasts between the two lives which it connects. It was the 3rd of March, 1887, 3 months before I was 7 years old. On the afternoon of that eventful day, I stood on the porch, dumb, expectant. I guessed vaguely from my mother's signs and from the hurrying to and fro in the house that something unusual was about to happen. So I went to the door and waited on the steps.
And so I think, as you can see, we're getting closer. It's not quite there yet, but it's definitely getting closer in terms of the AI-generated text-to-speech. I have some other books that I'm willing to kind of feed through that machine. I'm thinking of A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. When I listen to the audio recording, I have to stop it very quickly. I just don't find it very pleasant to my ears. So I think I'm going to do that next. That's all for me. Brian in Indianapolis.
Brian, thank you so much for that. Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of preferred the AI voice in that particular example. I mean,
of course you did. And look, this is so tricky because, volunteer readings that were done, the majority of the readings back in the day were volunteer work. You don't want to say anything negative about that. We would really appreciate it. But there's no denying the AI TTS there was far better narration. Just was.
But it's not only that. I mean, think about the benefits here of being able to just choose the voice you like. I do this on the reader mode a lot. I've done it on Edge. I do it on Safari now as well, although I've not delved in enough with Safari. But with Microsoft Edge, you can choose the voice, the reading speed that you want to listen to articles. So, separately from your screen reader, you can have articles read aloud to you.
Yes.
And that's brilliant because, like we were just saying about speed of our screen readers, sometimes we want, I want eloquence going at about, 80 or 70% or something like that, right? But I don't want to be listening to an article at that speed. I kind of want to listen, sit back and relax and listen to it. And that allows me to do that. And AI is great. But again, if you don't like the voice, you've got options. Whereas if it's a volunteer reading or it's even if it's a read book, professionally, doesn't mean you'll like the voice. You can't change it.
But there is a difference here. When we're talking about something like, read aloud, whatever mode, on whatever browser, reading an article, it's slightly different because I believe what was used there, and I could be wrong because I don't know, I believe that was produced TTS, as in, that was recorded and it was checked because it was really good. The pacing was really good. I don't believe that was on-the-fly screen reader style TTS. It could have been, and we're getting closer and closer to that. But when it comes to producing an audiobook that you don't have to pay a voice actor for, that you don't that you can produce quicker because it can just produce that in a couple of minutes rather than an 8-hour read. I believe this is different, and I think that is still produced TTS.
You see, there's always the danger. So. There's always the danger, isn't there, that the audiobooks were once the domain of blind people, right? They were made for blind people. But that's changed. Now we have a market that is mainstream. And this is where sometimes the mainstream market can become a problem for blind people because In this case, now companies are thinking, well, if we can push out these AI voices reading books, we can save a huge amount of money. Of course, there's a huge impact on the voiceover industry and the people who do this as well.
That is the danger.
That's the danger,
Yeah.
but the quality potentially goes as well. But if it gets to a point, and I don't think we're far off. I mean, like you're saying, with that example there from Brian, we're not that far off it being so close. We're struggling to tell. I did a test once with 3 audio clips, and
Yes.
I thought 2 of them were genuine and 1 was AI. And they were all AI. And
Yeah.
I was surprised. And not only that, I thought I would listen to that.
I still think, of course there's a danger, right? Because it's always about, at the end of the day, it's the bottom line, right? The dollar, how can we produce this cheaper? And
Yeah, but why are we
think-
fighting progress in this way? In some ways, this could make more. I mean, certainly from a language point of view, it makes books more available, because not only can you change that
Of course.
voice into multiple languages, you can choose whichever voice you want. I mean, it's the ultimate control.
Well, the danger between going more mainstream is that mainstream listeners may be saying, yeah, that sounds fine, when they're actually not almost a narration connoisseur. You could argue that we are. It's like AD.
I know a lot of audio engineers, and I know plenty of sighted ones. And, I often think, yeah, but, the best audio engineers are blind people. They just are.
You can't say that,
That's
even
true.
though it's true.
It's absolutely true. Because, blind people actually listen.
Well, and Brian put it really well there, when he said there's no really replacement for produced, even the dramatizations. I know some people have, issues with that as well. But, there's no replacement really for human narration, except I will say, and Brian made the point as well, it's for older content that it's just not going to get touched. Not
Yeah,
gonna
but
get
hang on.
picked
Are
up
you
by
saying that
anyone
because
else.
you're trying to defend an industry which is built up over time? Or, because I don't know. I think this argument is shifting. I think it's changing. I think we're getting to a point where if you can't tell the difference between a human voice and an AI voice, and certainly it's comfortable enough to listen to, it's not like, we're listening to eloquence read a book.
I would agree.
If we're getting to that stage, we say, well, there's nothing better than a human. Does it get to a point where we say, well, actually, do you know what? Yeah, they're on a par.
Yeah, that may be the case. Yeah, it may be. It's getting so much better each time I take a listen to one of these examples. But, that
And
was
if that
a
gives
clip.
us access to more books.
Yeah, but the point is that was a clip. And I had to cut that down a little bit. The clips were a lot longer than that, but for time, I had to cut those clips down. If you listen to an 8 or 10 hour book with TTS, will you still think, actually, that is better? Because you start to notice a pattern. You start to notice that it gets annoying if you hear a word pronounced the same way every time. Now, of course, that is going to get better as AI progresses. So, yeah, we'll wait and see. But I
Tone,
thought that
emotion.
example was a really good, exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Context of a sentence, the meaning of a paragraph, whatever it may be.
But it is
has
getting
a
there.
difference how you say it.
Just saying,
It
it's
is.
getting there. Okay, we've got one more in before we go. Thank you for that, Brian. Really appreciate your work on that one. Here is a message from Chris.
Hello guys, it's Chris here from High Barnet in the UK. This is my first message to you as I'm a relatively new listener to your podcast.
Oh, welcome along.
And I wanted to touch on a couple of things with you in this initial message. Firstly, one around the idea or the fact that some people feel quite uncomfortable or awkward around those of us with particular disabilities, including blindness. And I'd like to do this in the form of a situation that I encountered a few years ago. I was in my local supermarket with my white cane, which I carry with me. I overheard the voice of a young child. And I heard the child say to their mother, "Why has that man got a white stick, Mummy?" And I turned round and saw, because I still have some useful vision, I saw a woman with 2 young daughters. Now, what was interesting was that the mother had shushed her. In other words, implying that she was being rude in asking the question. I did something that many people would consider dangerous, and that is I intercepted between a mother and her child as I wanted to explain to the girl and redress the situation rather than just sort of scurry away feeling embarrassed. So I said to the mother, I'd very love to explain to your daughter why I've got the white stick. Would you be willing for me to do that? And the mother sort of said, had a kind of if you must kind of attitude. So I explained to the young girl that I had tunnel vision, I had a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, or RP, and on having explained the purpose of my white stick, as she called it, the mother kind of thanked me sort of, again, in a slightly dismissive way, and the girls, politely thanked me, and they went on their way. Now, the reason I mention this is that, it's incidents like this that make me think that had I not intercepted, if I'd let the mother just chastise the child for asking about somebody who's got a white stick, that could sort of last right through into adulthood and could set down the kind of idea that it's not okay to inquire about somebody's condition, and that it may leave them feeling awkward and uncomfortable around us with disabilities, and create this sort of idea of othering. I personally love it when people ask me about my visual impairment. I have no issue with that. And also, I kind of wonder whether there are any schemes where people with visual impairments and other disabilities go into schools to open youngsters' eyes, excuse the pun, to how it is for people who are blind and in other ways have other disabilities. The second thing I wanted to mention was to pose a little question to you, that if your computer is disabled or your phone is disabled, that basically means that it's kaput. It's no use to anybody. And for this reason, I personally don't like to call myself disabled. Ironically, I tend to prefer that I have a particular handicap, one thing that holds me back at times, which is my lack of vision. Having said that, I don't get stroppy if someone refers to me as being disabled. It is probably the most common way of describing people in our position. However, I prefer not to think of myself in that way. Finally, you mentioned that in North America, blind people are what's known as legally blind. And surely this implies that some people in North America are illegally blind, which concerns me because the new US administration, I'm worried that they might come down hard on those unfortunate people who might be illegally blind. So there you go. And that's me, Chris in Barnet, who is hopefully legally blind. And thanks. Bye for now.
Wow.
Are you registered blind, Stephen Scott?
Well,
have you got your registration with you?
So that's interesting, right? But you say that because, yes, you're right. I was registered blind at 14. Although I didn't realise this, there was a period, and I don't know the year, but there was a period where new legislation came in the UK, and that whole idea of registration stopped, and they stopped holding registers of blind people. Some councils do it. It's a voluntary basis, but it's not something anymore that is like there's an actual register of blind people.
Is there not?
No, apparently not. No, apparently it's all changed.
I did not know that.
No, I didn't.
We're all unregistered.
We're all just running around free, causing... This is why blind people cause so much hassle out there.
Well, I still need to supply a certificate or something when I'm applying for a badge for parking and things like that. So there's still that.
It's maybe there. Yeah. I mean, look, there must be a register in some name, maybe not by that name specifically, but you certainly hear you get a certificate. I've done something great. My eyes don't work. Yay!
Let's move backwards from that
like
then
blind
as well.
pride, is it?
Disabled, using the word disabled, stop it, and referring to yourself. Again, we've talked about this being it's a personal thing. I honestly don't care for the most part, but it's entirely up to you. But I would say, if a computer or a smartphone is disabled, it's a functionality is disabled. It doesn't necessarily mean it's kaput. But in my case, my vision functionality has been disabled.
I think your vision's kaput, mate. I'm sorry. I hate to tell you.
Well, wherever you call it, but I am still usable.
Yes. Well, listen,
move on.
I'll leave that for Sarah. But look, so much in there that I could pick up on, but we're out of time today. But I've got to say, what an amazing message, Chris. Thank you so much for getting in touch and sharing your thoughts, because I think a lot of people will resonate with all of that, especially, when a mother shoos her child away from you. I've had that so many times, and I've had exactly the same experience where I've said, it's kind of similar. Can I just explain? And very quickly, the child gets to, and actually on one occasion the mother became very, not in this case clearly with you, Chris, but in my experience the mother was quite interested and she started asking questions. We had a really nice conversation and off they went in their day. And I get it's all very individual, right? Some people just don't want to do it. They don't feel they should do it. I get it. I understand all that. But, if we want acceptance in the world, if we want to be part of the world, then we have to accept the fact that, we are a bit of, a bit of an outlier. We're outlaws. That's what we are.
Curiosity.
We're outlaws.
Yes.
We are a curiosity to a lot of people.
Do you know what? They're shushing their children just because they think they're being polite and don't want to upset you.
That's right.
So it's not even on their, they're not being horrible about it.
And also
either.
They might be having a hard day as well, right? The parents just, just got to put up with a kid, for goodness sake, so.
I want to do the shopping. I don't want to hear about your
Leave me
RP.
alone. Yeah, exactly. I could care less. Try to get this chicken made for dinner tonight. All that nonsense. Listen, thank you so much for your contributions. Keep them coming. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow with lots more. Will we? Yes, we will. No, we won't.
Yes.
It's Monday. We'll be back on Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.